الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir Al-Quran wa-Durr. The Jews, the Quran and spells. We're still reading from Surah Al-Nahl. And in this session, inshallah, we will cover verses 96 to 100 at least, and we might be able to go beyond this. Still, there are a couple of verses in between the very last. The previous selection was, we talk about verses 89 to 91, and this selection is 96 to 100. In between, we have few verses. Remember that in the last session, the session ended with commenting on the theme was fulfilling covenants. And we said that Muslims should fulfill the conditions, the terms, the time span of the of any covenant, of any treaty, of any agreement. No unilateral nullification. Talk about the Muslims should never do that. And if they do that, it will be like the following. And here's one of the verses in between. وَلَتَكُونُوا كَالَّتِي نَقَضَتْ غَزْلَهَا مِنْ بَعْدِ قُوَّةٍ أَنْكَاثًا تَتَّخِذُونَ أَيْمَانَكُمْ دَخَلًا بَيْنَكُمْ أَنْ تَكُونَ أُمَّةٌ هِيَ أَرْبَى مِنْ أُمَّةٍ إِنَّمَا يَبْلُوكُمُ اللَّهُ بِهِ وَلِيُبَيِّنَنَّ لَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مَا كُنْتُمْ فِيهِ تَخْتَلِفُونَ. Do not be like the woman who unravels her yarn after it is firmly spun. Not a sane act, let's say. By taking your oaths as a means of deceiving one another in favor of a stronger group, it entails changing position in favor of a stronger group that group was not originally part of the covenant, of the agreement. Should Allah test you through this, and the day of judgment, He will certainly make your differences clear to you. So this image of this woman means that do not. It's really destroying whatever you accomplish. But here in this case, of course, it's the covenant. Don't undo something good on your own, willingly. Had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed, He could have easily made you one community. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَكِنْ يُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَلَتُسْأَلُنَّ عَمَّا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. Had Allah willed, He could have easily made you one community, أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً, of course, of believers. It's one humanity. That's given. It is one humanity. And the Ummah, I think later on it does mention Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam being an Ummah, though he was one person. Okay. It's verse 120. إن إبراهيم كان أمة قانتا لله حنيفا ولم يكن من المشركين. Ummah. So one person is Ummah because he fulfilled, because he was the Imam, but it has been also interpreted as the one who teaches that which is good, that which is wholesome, that which is legitimate. Here, ummah wahida of believers. But He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leaves you to stray, whoever He wills, and guides whoever He wills. And you will certainly be questioned about what you used to do. It means He guides those who are sincere in their quest for guidance. While an ideal position would be that everyone will be guided, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their guidance is not up to you. His role sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to convey the message. ليس عليك هداهم. Then again, back to the to making oath, to taking an oath by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّخِذُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ دَخَلًا بَيْنَكُمْ. Do not take your oaths as a means of deceiving one another. فَتَزِلَّ قَدَمٌ بَعْدَ ثُبُوتِهَا. Or your feet will slip after they have been firm. وَتَذُوقُوا السُّوءَ بِمَا صَدَدتُّمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَكُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Then you will taste the evil consequences of hindering others from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will suffer a tremendous punishment. Whether it's by way of an oath or by way of behavior, because the message that Muslims should convey to others, one is verbal and textual, if you will. That's one message. The other message is the fulfillment of the first part. So one, for example, yes, you might talk about cleanliness in Islam, purification, purification of the body, purification of one's clothing, the purification of the place where you prostrate and pray. That's the text. That's the Islamic worldview. But at the same time, people should see this cleanliness and purification in your way of life. It cannot only be from lip service, let's say. People could be influenced by what we do as Muslims. Do not trade Allah's covenant for a fleeting gain. You give a covenant, you are part of a treaty, part of an agreement. You should fulfill it. Don't look for any worldly gain. What is with Allah is certainly far better for you. If only you knew. And now the first verse 96 of the next selection. مَا عِنْدَكُمْ يَنْفَذُ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ. Whatever you have will end. It will be exhausted. It will be consumed. It will be, and whatever Allah has is everlasting. It will not be exhausted. What we have is limited. Not that which with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will certainly reward the steadfast according to the best of their deeds. ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق ونجزين الذين صبروا أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. And here we have a verse that mentions good deeds by both male and female. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فليحيينه حياة طيبة ونجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. Whoever does good, whether male or female, and is a believer, will surely bless them with a good life, and will certainly reward them according to the best of their deeds. Male and female. One can say, if you talk about comparison, first of all, do not compare your worldview with the practice reality of others. That's one thing. If you compare your worldview with another worldview, your religion with another religion, with religious text with another religious text, or reality with reality. You cannot say, for example, divorce in Islam is detested. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is permitted, but it is detested. Okay. It is permissible as a last resort. You can talk about mediation, as in the Qur'an, and then compare it to the percentage of divorce in a specific country or culture. Or that's not fair. That's not fair. So, من ذكر أو أنثى, I think it's very important to remind ourselves that the very first story in the Quran, that of Adam and Eve, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed the angels that He will create a vicegerent on earth as Adam alayhi salam, and He bestowed on Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, He taught him language. Of course, it means also that the ability to speak, to use language, and the language itself, because that's a prerequisite, a necessary step, so that Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam will understand the command to dwell in the garden and eat there and enjoy the garden with his spouse. But also there was a warning: do not avoid that particular tree, do not consume anything from that tree. And it's not specified in the Quran. And it's not really important at all. When the Quran drops details, it's not important. The most important thing is that which is halal, that which is lawful, is plentiful. One tree only was prohibited. A test from day one, if you will. There was a test. In Genesis, the very first book of the Torah, as is, Eve eats first. The snake, representing the Satan, tempts Eve, and Eve eats, and then Adam was not there. Then Eve introduces that which is prohibited to Adam alayhi salam. So Eve was practically blamed for the fall, and that influenced the status of woman. They say Judeo-Christian worldview and reality societies. One can argue against this construct, the Judeo-Christian, but this is not the time. And for a long time, Eve was blamed for the fall. So much so that at one point there were those who would even think that she did not have a soul, etc. Not in the Quranic narrative. And if you come across, and it does exist in books of exegesis, they don't quote a verse, there's no such a thing. They don't quote a hadith, there's no such a thing. There is no blame. It is not, if you see any blame on Eve, that's the literature that we call Israeliyat, stories from the people of the book that made their way to Islamic literature, but not to the Quran and the hadith, of course. And the story does not mention the names. There's a dual suffix pronoun. فأزلهم الشيطان عنها فأخرجهم ما كان فيه. We will never know who ate first based on the Quranic narrative. In fact, it's the other way around. There is no, it does not say that Adam alayhi salam ate first, but he is warned that thereafter, after he ate with his spouse from the prohibited tree, that this life on earth will entail hardship. So that's the beginning of male and female, Adam and Eve. Both of them were tempted. Both of them were warned. Both of them were tempted. Both of them were expelled. We don't have the names, because had there been names, of course, Adam is mentioned earlier, but in that story, the names are not mentioned. Had there been names, if the narrative said Adam and Eve ate, one might say, okay, Adam was mentioned first, then he must have eaten first, or in the expulsion, and Adam and Eve were expelled from the garden, or that even Adam ate, then you would say, oh, it must be the case that Eve is mentioned first because she ate first. She was, and there's no such a correlation, but people might have said no names in this story, in the actual text, verses 30 to 35 approximately. Men and women have responsibilities. Theologically, both of them should have the same theology, believing in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels, the prophets, the books that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, the day of judgment, the allotment. Usually people translate qadar into predestination. Part of it is predestination, but does not cover everything. Allotment might be the right word, or a combination, if you will. Women are praised in the Qur'an, and there are verses that speak about both the masculine and feminine forms of Muslim believing men and Muslim believing women. The Muslim men who give charity, women who give charity. So in every respect, there is that kind of a relationship between both. It is complementary, but both believe, both practice, and there are concessions for women. For example, when they both pray, and it is highly recommended, bordering on obligation, uh, for example, to pray the Friday prayer for men, not for women. Because think about it this way: say that a woman uh, is in her ninth month in terms of pregnancy. Towards this is her week, and is there Friday? It's Friday, and if you say it's an obligation, then she should go to the mosque, the Friday mosque at a distance, and that will be burdensome. It's not that she is less, but the praying at home is the equivalent. She will be highly rewarded for that. Think about it this way: both in terms of worldly things and in terms of the otherworldly, the spiritual. Some men are better than some men, some women are better than some women, some men are better than some women, and some women are better than some men. So there's no category that this is why when we mentioned the verses about people being informed of baby girls being born to them, some of them, it is still the culture. It is not only in our part of the world. People would like a baby boy. How do you know that the baby boy is going to be good for you as a family, good for you as a father? How do you know that? When Maryam alayhi salam, when Mary's mother pledged that which was in her womb to the service of God, dedicating her, she thought that she was pregnant with a baby boy. How do you know that? How do we know this? Because the moment she gave birth to Maryam alayhi salam, it was like an oops moment. She said, Rabbi inni wada'tuha untha. She was apologetic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted Maryam alayhi salam. He chose her over all women on earth. And that's a very important moment, that women are good for a spiritual relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Except that men should be men, women should be women, and there are direct teachings in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Hadith, not to mix the roles, not to look like each other. It is prohibited for both to look like the other sex in terms of dress. There is something they call cross-dressing. What a shame. It's very clear. And it's not fair for the society that drives. There was a book, it's about business, written by two American academics, two professors, a man and a woman, about business ethics in the United States, really. And the book said that it was deliberate after World War II, lack of men, lack of manpower, if you will, and they took women from home to the factories. It was deliberate. It was a policy. And what it meant ultimately, that among many other things, you talk about 8, maybe even 10 hours, including being on the road and in the factory. And when she goes home, she still takes care of her family, as if she works 2 shifts. That's not fair towards women. That's not fair. So, whoever does good, whether male or female, and is a believer, we will surely bless them with a good life, and we will certainly reward them according to the best of their deeds. And if you, when you recite the Quran, seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Satan, the accursed, فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Jumhur ulama is that the isti'adha is before recitation. Most Muslim scholars are of the opinion that the seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the accursed Satan is before the recitation of the Quran. For Satan has no authority over those who believe and put their trust in their Lord. His authority إنه ليس له سلطان على الذين آمنوا على ربهم يتوكلون إنما سلطانه على الذين يتولونه والذين هم به مشركون. His authority is only over those who take him as a patron and who under his influence associate others with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship. The first part, verse 99, he has no authority over those who believe. Because we do have a verse, إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمْ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, that he has no authority of those servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sincere, the dedicated. Others, like Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, said that he has no authority, that they will have, they would sin and they will not repent. He has no such authority on them. So people could sin, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave it to Satan. People are tested. In fact, people should know that it's going to be a rough ride with Satan's dedication. لَا قُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ, that he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he pledged that he will be on our path. He will be there. Imam Al-Ghazali says that there is a war between the soldiers of the angels and the soldiers of Satan, and this war takes place. The battlefield is the heart of the believer, and it's daily. Satan will never leave you alone. Let's think about it. Are there those who commit sin in the middle of the night, early morning, midday, evening? Oh yes. Are there those who divorce during these different times? Yes. Are there those who do this and that different times? Yes, because Satan does not take a break. His authority is over those who obey him, obey Satan, those who take him as a patron, as an ally, and ultimately, of course, وَهُمْ بِهِ مُشْرِكُونَ, meaning because that's ultimately what Satan wants from people. Satan is not interested in a minor sin and would say, okay, that's it. The ultimate aim of Satan is to make people non-believers. كمثل الشيطان قال الإنسان اكفر فلما كفر قال إني بريء منك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين. So Satan does drive people. He wants people to become non-believers, to associate things or people or whatever with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to create problems between people. Yes, of course, but ultimately he would like to see them to become non-believers. Inshallah, in the next session we'll deal with the very last selection of Surah Al-Nahl, verses 125 to 128, towards to the end of the صورة إن شاء الله. Until then سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.